2 more days, everybody. 2 more days until the end of Amphibia. And I feel like Sprig. I feel like Sprig right now, sitting on the counter with the note and just saying like, oh, nothing's gonna change. Amphibia will always be a part of my life. And yeah, everyone else's hot pot being like, sure, of course. Yeah, no, it's ending in 2 days. And it really feels surreal. It really does. I can't believe it's ending in 2 days. I mean, obviously, we're still going to get more content. We still have the Marcy journal. I'm definitely going to be checking that out when it comes out. So I think the main confusion that a lot of people have, or at least myself, going into this is what the heck is the core doing? So at the end of All In, obviously, we saw the core was like downloaded into the helmet. I thought the core was like, I don't even know what the core is at this point. I don't know where its main thing is located. It was in the helmet, right? So, like, if it's still in the helmet, why can't it possess Marcy? Like, we can clearly see it walking around. Why does it need to be connected to be able to take over Marcy if it's still inside the helmet? That was very confusing. I don't know, there's a lot of confusing things about the core right now. Because, obviously, that's how Sasha defeated Darcy, was by severing the connection. And sure, maybe Darcy lost connection to the entire room. Like, let's say all the eyeballs in the room. But you should still have control over Marcy, right? Like, one would think? I don't know. Either way, the core is still in its little spider helmet form. And at first, before we saw the Hardest Thing trailer, I thought it was going to take over Andreas. But then I was like thinking, Andreas has lost 2 limbs. Why would... what are you going to do? Like, are you going to somehow replace those limbs? And the mech is destroyed, so you can't use the mech? I don't know. And then we see in the trailer, obviously, it goes for the moon instead. And this makes me wonder, what's up with the moon? The moon has clearly been tampered with. Like, if you look at the moon in the shot, it has all the eyeballs on it, but there's like a socket for the core to fit in. And that means the moon was altered with that purpose in mind. By who? Maybe just by the core itself? I highly doubt that. You think like some of the ancient newts or Andrew's father would know about it? But it also makes me very confused because when you look at the core and the king, Leif is telling everybody about the vision, right? It doesn't really, we don't see her explain it, but we imagine that she does. Like, in context, she explains the whole vision, and then Andrew's father is like, this might be of concern. But then the core talks to Andrew's father, and then he's like, nonsense, you sound like those stupid Olms. It's just so confusing, because Leif's like, uh-oh, guys, the moon's gonna fall. And then the core's like, no, that won't happen. But, like, you're the one making it happen? Unless the core thinks it won't have to resort to making the moon fall? I just don't know. I don't know what the core is after. My one guess, or I guess there's like several, but like you think about what the core stands for, right? Matt Brawley had a really good quote in the Q&A recently where the core is basically what goes against Amphibia as a show. So he was explaining how Amphibia is a show about growth and change, which we can see a lot in All In and potentially in The Hardest Thing coming up here soon. And the core is the opposite of that, where it wants things to be how they used to be, and it's going to be great. You know, in the Q&A, that's exactly pretty much what Matt Brawley said. And it was a really good quote, so it made me wonder, why the heck is it going to bring down the moon to destroy everything? Like, the moon is getting closer and closer to Amphibia, unless the moon is simply just... I don't know. I have several guesses. One, the moon maybe isn't supposed to crash into Amphibia. Maybe it's just supposed to get closer so that things inside the moon can attack everybody. Maybe that's what it is. And 2, if the moon is coming down to Amphibia, and the core is the one making it fall, maybe it wants a reset, where it'll just destroy everything. And then I was like, wait, you're gonna destroy the box too, but like you probably wouldn't destroy the stones. Because the stones are the sacred birthright, not the box. They don't ever talk about the box being their sacred birthright. They talk about the stones. They don't know much about the stones, but they do know about the box. And even Terry says that the ancient newts were the ones who made the box, which I think was like, I don't know, like why else would she say that if they didn't make it? So the newts were the ones who made the box to use the stone's power. So that no one knows what the truth of the stones are, but they made the box to use the stones. I don't know. And they use music to traverse through worlds and whatnot. So I imagine if the core brings the moon down and destroys everything, all it needs to do then is use its little robots and look around for the stones, grab the stones, and go make a new Calamity box. Because the core is smart enough to probably make a new Calamity box, but it doesn't know like anything about the stones or whatever. It just knows how to use the stones. So maybe that's what the core is going to go after. I don't know. I really don't know. It's so hard for me to tell, like, I don't know what the core wants. I really don't. Like, I'm trying to think, like, what is the reasoning behind it doing it? And I can't figure it out. It's probably a lot simpler than I'm trying to make it out to be, but, like, I don't know. I just feel like they're going to pick a direction that the core is going to want to go into, because I think it's just, Amphibia does a really good job of keeping things so open to where so many things could happen. Before Darcy had a lot of speaking lines, I talked so much about the potential of Darcy and how there were so many different directions that Darcy could have gone in. There was a lot of things that I wish they could have done with Darcy, like where like Darcy could have said to Sasha, hey, if you hurt me, you're gonna hurt Marcy. They didn't go in that direction at all. I wish they went into they did this a little bit where Darcy was like, hey, don't you want to know what Marcy really thinks of you? I wish they kind of manipulated and played a bit more into that, but again, obviously they only have a limited amount of time. But I just think they could have done a lot more with the core. Not that like what they did was bad. I think it was amazing. But I just mean like the amount of potential that they could have done with the core is just insane. Like, well, and again, not saying what they did is bad at all. It's like literally perfect in my opinion. But you could have gone in so many different directions and it still would have been like awesome. I don't know. It's just like they build up these really awesome ideas, and it's just like whatever direction they take it in, you know they're gonna do great with it. And it's just like, that's what I see with this finale. It's like, they're building up so many different outcomes, and I feel like whatever happens, I'm gonna love it. But I'm just trying to think about, like, it's so hard to theorize, because even though this is the last episode, things are still just open enough to where you can't predict everything. And I've been thinking about this for like the past 2 days, about like, what is gonna happen? What is Amphibia as a show? It's about growth and change, yeah, okay. But what is the significance of that growth and change? What does the finale have to say as a final message? Like, again, it's a Disney show, so it's probably going to have a mostly happy ending. We can't get a sad ending where they get trapped in Amphibia forever. Like, that'd just be a sad ending. You know, that's not going to happen. Or, like, they could do a bittersweet ending. That's what I feel like Amphibia will have, is a bittersweet ending. They'll have a happy ending, but some things about it will be sad. Like, Marcy, she's probably going to move away. I think that's almost guaranteed. And whether she loses a body part or not, she's gonna live. She's gonna make it back alive. I just really have a hard time of predicting what Amphibia's final message is going to be. Because All In already had so many good messages about, like, you know, loving yourself, accepting change, growing. There's just so much. Like, and Sasha and Marcy all had their big moments where Marcy rejects the core, Sasha stands up to Darcy saying, I'm not that person anymore, and Anne, you know, finally confronts and learns about who she is, and she learns to love herself. But then it's like, what comes next? What's the result of that? Anne does love herself, but back in the original description for the show, it was like selfish 13-year-old Anne, blah, 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 goes into Frog World, have adventure. But that's the thing, it's like, at the beginning of the show, she was selfish, and now she's very selfless, where she will step into a 1v1 match to protect thousands of people. Like, that's the kind of person she's become. She's become very selfless and kind, but she also doesn't let people walk over her. She knows what she wants to do and what she believes in. I don't know, it's really cool. And it's like, what does that mean for the finale of the show? If Anne is so selfless, would she sacrifice everything to save Amphibia? Because I feel like she might? Or like it's hard to say. Kind of like what Marcy was saying. Marcy wasn't lying at the end of True Colors, even though it was like her betraying the team. When she said, I gave you everything, she kind of wasn't lying. I mean, the context was bad, but she wasn't exactly lying. She gave Anne and Sasha this opportunity to change. If they didn't go to Amphibia, they probably would have still had their toxic relationship. So even though, while it's just so complex with the whole Marcy thing, I'm sorry. Marcy bringing them to Amphibia is so complex, but I can't say it's like entirely good and bad. It's just, I can't. If I go and explain it now, I'll just go off on a tangent. But, you know, Amphibia gave this chance for Anne to grow and to change and to learn more about herself. And I think that's really interesting, but it's like, would she sacrifice everything to save the place that helped her become who she is? Because she found herself in Amphibia. She found out the type of person who she is through Amphibia. So because of that, she'd probably want to protect it no matter what. And I think that's where we get like this sort of scene where Anne goes up to stop the core solo. Where we see, like, in the Hardest Thing trailer, I think what's going to happen, I kind of hope it goes opposite, because we see two sort of different things, and it gets very confusing, which is, again, why it makes it very hard to judge what this finale is going to be based on. We see what sort of looks like in the beginning, where the three of the girls are learning about the prophecy from Mother Olm again, and they're going to get their powers, and it's like, oh, such power comes at a price, whatever. So what it looks like, which is kind of sad, I almost don't like it. It looks as if the three of them are going to gain their powers, and they're going to go stop the core. They set up a barrier, blah, blah, blah. It's not enough. They're taking on robots. And for some reason, Anne has to go up solo because, I don't know, she's the main character. She's the most experienced with the Calamity powers, whatever. For some reason, Anne is going to have to go up solo. What I wish it was instead, Anne goes up solo, realizes she can't do it on her own. She comes back for the others, and then they all go take out the core together. But I don't think that's going to happen for multiple reasons, because when they're gathering their powers in this shot here, all three of them are getting their powers. The building explodes, and we see like the top of the castle still intact in this shot where the thing explodes. And then in the next shot, when they're flying up toward the moon, it's gone. And I imagine, like, if you just look at it from there, it's like, oh, the building explodes, and then the three of them head on up there right after that. Like, those two scenes are probably very close together. And there's no barrier when they're heading on up there, right? So I imagine the barrier, I'm calling it the barrier. People think it's also a portal where they could, like, open up a portal using the Calamity powers and send the moon elsewhere, which I don't think that's going to happen. I just don't. I mean, it could. Like, honestly, I don't know why they're not doing it. I very well think they could just use the beam from the castle, send the moon somewhere else. But then they're also, like, that might mess up the gravity of the situation or whatever. I don't know. It's weird. But I feel like that's maybe something they might end up doing. I don't know. Anyways, so the three of them, they're going up. We even see them in, like, the shot where the core is still very far away from the Earth, or Amphibia, and it's starting to come closer, and we see, like, the three of them really blurry with their Calamity powers. So we know the three of them are gonna have their Calamity powers, and the barrier isn't set up in this scene. The barrier gets set up later. We see it, like, in a scene where the barrier's getting set up, and the moon is still somewhat far away, right? It's, like, getting closer to Amphibia, and the barrier is just then getting set up by all three of them. And I imagine when that barrier is getting set up, it wears out Sasha and Marcy, because most of it is also blue, I've noticed, so it makes sense that Anne, like, has the most control over it. But most of it is blue, and, like, the main thing is, like, we see the shot of Sasha and Marcy, which is awesome. Sasha and Marcy, I could go on a tangent about them. They don't have a lot of interactions. Like, Anne and Sasha have a lot. Anne and Marcy have a lot. Sasha and Marcy, not really. They don't really have that many, like, one-on-one interactions without, like, anyone else being there. Like, correct me if I'm wrong, but besides, like, Darcy, I guess Graham was there too. Have they ever had a one-on-one conversation? I don't know. I guess that you could... No, I don't think so. I really don't think so. I guess, like, the only time is when Sasha's like, oh no, Marcy, are you okay? But, like, she's asleep. She's, like, unconscious. Like, I don't think they've ever had a 1v1 one-on-one conversation. Whatever. Anyway, the two of them are, like, supporting each other down at the bottom, and, like, Sprig is gone too. So I imagine that is, like, one of the last shots, and we see, like, a little shiny thing near the barrier, which I imagine is, like, Anne or something. I don't know. I just think that Anne is going to somehow go all the way up to the moon itself. It's like, oh, we can't stop the core with the barrier. That'll just be like a, I don't know, plan B. I'm gonna go up there and stop the core itself and, like, unhook it from the moon or something. I don't know. And then Sprig is gonna go up and help her, I guess, because she's gonna need help. Maybe, like, Anne will get hurt by all the robots. She'll start falling down, losing her Calamity powers, and then Sprig will catch her on top of Frobo, and they'll go and face Darcy, the core together on top of the moon. They'll defeat the core, which will then make the moon the core will lose control of the moon, except the moon is probably still gonna fall, but without the core, being in possession of the moon, I imagine that will make it so like, oh, it'll be easier to push back with the barrier. So Anne, Sasha, and Marcy will use their calamity powers and push back the moon after defeating the core. And the core will still somehow live. I just think they're going to somehow seal it away to where it can never be messed with again. Or I think they might portal to it where it's like Wheatley. Without too much spoilers into Portal 2, but like, you know, you could just Wheatley frickin' the core and just have it sent out to space forever where it can't do anything anymore. Because if you can't kill it, I mean, it is a computer, so I guess you could just like smash it to bits and like, oh, I guess the data's still there until you repair it. But like, what you could do is if you can't beat something, just send it out into space forever. I mean, I guess that's bad because it could eventually drift and land on a planet and just take over things, but I don't know. I feel like that's maybe a thing that they could do, is just send out the core into space. And it would be kind of fitting because the core is always talking about how, oh, Andreas, you don't need anybody else. You're with us. We are all you need. And it'd be like the complete opposite where the core, you know, is talking about how friendship is pointless. We don't need it. And then in the end, the core ends up alone. I mean, I guess there's still like 9 people in it, so they can talk to each other. But like, I think a fitting end for the core is eternal loneliness. And that's exactly what it tried to do to Marcy too, where it's like, oh, suffer child in eternal darkness. And I think that'd be a really fitting end where it's like, that's what they tried to do to Marcy. And instead, that's what happens to the core. I think the core's fate, I think no matter what, I really do, no matter what is happening in this theory, I think no matter what, the core's fate is eternal darkness. No matter what, it's eternal loneliness and eternal darkness. That's how they beat the core. That's how I think that's gonna happen. Because like, what if the core is destroyed? It's just like, well, you said it can't die or ever sleep, so it's like, I don't know. I guess you can't. I guess it can die. I guess the prophecy's fake. I don't know. I just think that would be just a fitting end, especially since that's what it tried to do to Marcy, and it would be like the perfect way to defeat the villain because Amphibia, it's like the growth and the change, and they're all teaming up. And Anne's talking about how, oh, it's worth it to keep this friendship intact. Like, it's worth it to go the distance for friendships and the memories of friends. Anyway, just all the stuff that Amphibia stands for. The core would be defeated against that and face eternal loneliness and darkness. I just think that'd be really cool. Another thing that I really want to have happen, which I'm kind of concerned won't happen, but I really, really hope will, is I want to hear some more lines from the core. Like, directly from the core. We've had, like, the core has never spoken, besides just and the cool, awesome sounds. I love the sound design of the core, by the way. I want to talk about that some other day. The sound design of the core is so cool. But besides through Darcy, we've never really seen the core actually speak English. I'm hoping when it's on top of the moon, the core will have like a final boss phase where it takes those, whatever those creatures that are coming from the moon are, the ancient amphibian / bug / robot / whatever they are, shadowfish, possessed, maybe like shadowfish in armor. I don't know. I've seen a lot of theories about what those creatures are. I don't really have enough information, I think, but I'm hoping that the core will like be on top of one of those as like its final form, and it will talk through that, and it'll be all creepy, and it'll reveal like its final plan or whatever, and be like, oh, I'm gonna destroy Amphibia, start all over because it's too far gone. I can't trust anybody. I am the only one that I need. If you want a job done right, then do it yourself. You know, it's going to be like, oh, I have to do this all on my own. I don't know, the core, I just think it's so interesting because, like, oh, the core, it'll push everything away. All it needs is its robots that take orders and do nothing else. And when it pushes everybody away, that's when it loses. You know, with Andreas, maybe it would have stood a chance, but when it pushed Andreas away too, that's it. It's just over. I don't know, I just think like that I just hope, I don't think the core will talk, which sucks. I really hope it has like a final form where we get to hear its like true voice. Like, it might speak in Aldrich's voice, but maybe we could just get like a cool, all of their voices at once. I don't know, it'll probably just be like Aldrich's voice if it does talk, because that's like, in the Mindscape we've just seen mostly Aldrich. Like, the other core members are just like gold newt people. Anyways, I guess that's just mostly that theory. I think anything that happens after that is just resolution. You know, we get the goodbye, or Sprig is like, oh, we're gonna have to say goodbye, and they're probably gonna be like, oh, we'll have to destroy the music box, and I just feel like that's what they're gonna do. The music box is probably gonna end up being destroyed so that it can never end up in bad hands again, because I just don't see them ever doing this sort of star versus thing where they're able to travel back between worlds. And it is called the hardest thing for a reason. Like, we also have to think about why is it called the hardest thing? Not just because of, you know, it's our final challenge, but the hardest thing is saying goodbye to Sprig and the planters, because it's saying goodbye to Amphibia. It's saying goodbye. The beauty of life is the change. Whatever. It's gonna be sad. I already know. I'm probably gonna freaking cry when I see this. But that's the hardest thing. It's saying goodbye, and it's also gonna be the hardest thing because they're gonna probably say goodbye to Marcy, and then maybe Anne and Sasha will, you know, stay pals at the school. I don't know. It's just open enough to where you can't predict everything, and I love that too. I love that. I can't wait to be surprised. I just can't wait. I can't wait, but I'm also not ready. It's like I want it to happen now, but I also don't. I want to be like, I'll just wait. Just wait. I'm not ready for it, but I am. It's such a weird feeling where it's like you don't want it to come, but you're also like waiting forever. Like I'm just like counting on my fingers the days until it comes, and I'm just like, oh, it's almost here. It's almost here. I'm so ready. And then I'm like, wait, I'm not ready. I'm not ready. Let's see. What are some other things that I want to have happen that I probably don't think will happen? Is maybe a time skip. I think that'd be kind of neat to see, like, a year later, we get, like, a final scene where we see, like, Wartwood maybe being repaired, and we see Sprig, like, walking around the town, and he's now, like, the new town protector or something. Maybe he's like, oh, I'm gonna make a trip to Newtopia to get supplies, Hop Pop, and then Hop Pop's like, oh, cool, Sprig, I'll watch over the farm, you and Polly go out on an adventure, and they're like, oh, we're gonna go adventures, and Sprig looks at the telescope that Anne gave him or something, and he's like, oh man, I wish Anne was here, but I know she'll probably be doing well. And then we get like to Anne's side of the thing, and it's like, oh, she and Sasha are like meeting up, and then they get a call from Marcy, who's in a different state, and she's like, hey guys, I made some new friends, they're cool, but not as cool as you guys. I don't know, just something like that, I don't know. But like, we're gonna see like a scene probably where Anne and Sasha are, I almost guarantee, like there are just some scenes that I feel like we're just gonna see. And I think 3 of the scenes are, 1, the core is going to be lost in space, or at least the fate of the core is going to be the eternal loneliness. 2, I think we're going to see a scene where Marcy's driving away in a car, and she's waving bye to Anne and Sasha because she's moving away, and I think that's what we're going to see. And then if there is a time skip, I think we're going to see a FaceTime scene between Anne and Sasha and Marcy. Like, I think that's just almost guaranteed to happen if there is a little time skip, which I feel like there might be. I feel like there might be. Knowing how they're going to want to do it, I don't think it'll be like a major time skip. I think it's going to be like half a year or a year time skip. I don't think it'll be like a 10-year time skip where we see them as adults. So I believe Matt has said that he wants to kind of keep things open-ended a little bit, to my knowledge, of like Amphibia, where it's that you don't know exactly what the characters are going to end up doing with their lives. So I think that if there is going to be any sort of time skip, it'll just be like, at most, probably a year. I just think that'd be like a nice scene where it shows like, oh, even the distance or time, the memories that we've shared will always mean a lot. I don't know, that's sort of final speech that Anne gave to Marcy. Sort of stuff like that. And the beauty of the life is a change, like Leif's final speech. I feel like Leif's final speech is like, that is Amphibia, where she's talking about how the beauty of life is the change and how you need to open your heart. Like, I think that is like, that Leif's message is not only a message to Andreas, but a message to like everybody. It's the message of Amphibia, I think. Like, Leif's letter was not addressed to Andreas, it was addressed toward the viewers and Andreas and everybody. It's like, what do you take away from the show? Exactly what Leif said, basically. I don't know, just stuff like that. Another thing that I really want to have happen, that I don't think will happen, sadly, is I want Marcy to have a cool moment, right? I think other people have also meant this, where, you know, Anne goes crazy when she loses Sprig, Sasha goes crazy when Grimes' arm gets cut off. We want to see some Marcy action, where Marcy goes crazy, or at least, like, she does something really, really cool, because Marcy hasn't got to do anything cool. I hate to say it, but, like, she hasn't really got to do anything, like, super epic in a fight. Like, she's got to, you know, do some cool things, especially as Darcy, she's got to do cool things. But Marcy herself never got to do anything, like, super cool. Obviously, you know, she had where she jumps off on Joe Sparrow to save Sprig. You know, she fights back in True Colors, whatever. As Darcy, she's cool. And while she's in the core, you know, she slaps Aldrich's hand away. So that's cool, and she uses the light from the photo. But, like, in the real world, she hasn't done anything, like, super cool, where Anne goes, like, it punches Andrews in the face, or where Sasha goes, like, absolutely freaking crazy, which, by the way, there's a second part that somebody pointed out on twitter.com. I thought this was really cool, where, you know, in her outfit in the Mindscape is sort of like Edelgard, but that's not the only comparison to Edelgard that you can make in the episode, where Sasha grabs her sword and like slowly stands up. That also is sort of Edelgard's, I don't want to spoil Three Houses if you haven't played it, but it also sort of is similar to Edelgard holding her sword and looking up. It's like the exact same thing, except in like they're facing different directions, but I think that's super cool. So it's like another parallel to Edelgard, sort of comparing Sasha to Edelgard. Oh yeah, one last shot that I think is a little interesting is the final shot of the promo. This shot right here. I have several little theories about this scene. I don't think this is Anne flying up to the moon. That's what I thought it was at first, because that's sort of how the promo sort of framed it, where Anne is flying upward. But I think, looking closely at this scene and comparing it to space, and the space background of the other scenes, maybe it's just because of the blue and the whatnot, and the little sparklies in the background, but I don't think that this is Anne flying in space. It's kind of hard because like it's only here for like barely a half a second, and it does sort of show Anne panning upward, so she could be flying, but she could also just be standing, and it's like panning downward toward her. And the lines are going down as well, so it almost looks like as if she's flying. But I think what it also could be is like it's just doing like a cool panning shot where she's getting her true Calamity powers, because she's not in her Calamity form here, so she can't be flying, and she's going up, so I don't think she's flying here. I think what this is two things. One, she's like getting the Calamity powers here, or something like that. But if you look at the background of this shot, it's not identical, but it looks very, very similar to the area where she was charging the stone, right? If you look at the background, they have the sort of same starriness, and it's kind of hard to tell, but like if you look at the background without the lines, it does almost seem as if there's those northern light sort of things, like the celestial lights or whatever you call them. It does sort of seem like they're back there. It is like a lot brighter because like the speed lines and whatever. So I'm wondering if Anne might be back here. I'm guessing that this is like the place where Anne is. Either that or it's just a cool backshot for her getting powers. I just don't think that this is her flying up to the moon. I think the final, like the latest shot in the trailer, I think, like beyond anything else, is Sprig flying up toward the moon to Anne. I think after that, I think this shot here is just misleading, where it's just Anne getting her powers or being in this area and doing something. And the light is shining from above her, so maybe it's something, maybe it's the gem. I don't know. I literally don't know. I just don't think this is her flying up to the moon. Could totally be wrong. Just a small thing I wanted to point out. I don't think it's her flying to the moon. Anyway, I think that's all I really wanted to talk about. I know there was some more stuff I wanted to talk about all in. There are a few things I missed, like how Sasha's, like back in Reunion when she was doing the spray paint on the wall, that's still there in All In. And I love the soundtrack of All In. I think they actually released the soundtrack of All In, which is super cool. And I love the reunion scene where like Marcy, you know, comes back and they're all like hugging it out, and you hear Marcy's theme playing, and then it like transfers over to Anne's theme. And I swear I might have heard Sasha's theme a little bit in there. I don't actually know. I could have been making that up. I'll have to like listen to the soundtrack on its own. But I just love like all the iterations of Marcy's theme that he like play throughout All In. And I think like when they get back together, there's like a really nice Marcy theme where she's like apologizing, and then it transitions to where Anne accepts the apology and talks about like, hey, we're okay. Our friendship is still, you know, it went through rough patches, but we can make it out of this. I don't know. There's gonna be so much happening in this finale. So let me know your thoughts and what you think might happen in the finale. I'm sure there's more I wanted to talk about, and yes, there is. I know there is. But I'm gonna end it here. And I don't know if I'll have any more videos between now and the hardest thing. But I am ready. I am not ready, but I am ready at the same time. I am ready for the change. I am also not. I don't know how to explain it. Anyways, though, that's gonna be it for me. Thanks for watching, and I will see you all after the hardest thing.